Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for staying on in this session before lunch. You know the English expression, the graveyard shift. This is actually before lunch, normally it's after lunch, but with such a great panel, I'm sure it will be a very interesting conversation. I wanted to share with you that I'm actually reading Dan Brown's latest novel called The Secret of Secrets. I don't know if anyone has read it or is reading it. You know? It's a very fascinating book. It's a thriller, obviously, but Dan Brown has researched very extensively the phenomenon of human consciousness linked to universal consciousness. And the reason I wanted to mention that is because the subject of this panel, youth engagement in the peace process, is very much a secret. It's a secret because it's a hidden force which occasionally gets referred to, occasionally is leveraged, but there's much more behind that could be put to good effect. And I'm sure, as you'll hear the panelists speak, that you'll be convinced of that. In fact, Gina this morning, when she was talking about the Northern Ireland peace process, she mentioned tangentially that youth are often overlooked. And I think that is the case today as well, but we and others are trying to change that. And the best examples are sitting in front of you. But I'll take a few minutes just to introduce our great panelists here. Starting with Professor Gijs Veltis. Many of you may know him. He's a local expert. He's a professor at Cyprus University in social and human development psychology. He's, for many years, studied the subject. He's written many papers, authored a very interesting book, co-authored a book that came out last year. And I think what's interesting about Gijs is that he can give a systems transformation perspective from the point of view of human and social development. We are very fortunate also to have the two co-chairs of the relatively new Technical Committee on Youth, Amalia Avram, and we also have Vebi Setter, who have different professions. Vebi is a sociologist, and Amalia is a corporate lawyer. They've both been active in the intercommunal space in terms of building and promoting dialogue through different organizations, and which have led them to take on these important roles in the Technical Committee on Youth. And then, last but not least, we have two UWC students alumni. It was mentioned this morning briefly by Hugo Sobral that we have an amazing partnership with the European Union that for 10 years around has been funding a tremendous scholarship program for Cypriot youth. Just to correct something that Cleopatra said, I don't know if she's still in the room, but yes, you are. We are not universities, we are high schools. It's called United World Colleges, hence the confusion, because colleges in the American sense often means universities. But we're a global network of schools, 18 schools around the world, not-for-profit, taking on students selected from very diverse communities around the world. And in Cyprus, for the last 10 years, we've been able to develop this tremendous program, bringing together young people from different communities in Cyprus, not only to attend our schools in Europe, but also to participate in short courses, and one-day experiential gatherings, apart from doing many other things. And the important thing about this program is that we've not only been able to reach hundreds of young Cypriots, but also their families, and creating a community of change makers, because the UWC education model is very much centered on peace and sustainability, but it's very much based on empowering young people to be the change, to lead the change. So the two students that we have on the panel, they are both still students, although one of them has graduated from UWC. So Yasmin Beloum, who she took part in a UWC short course, And she has been selected after a very rigorous selection program to attend the UWC school in Germany starting in September of this year, which will be a 2-year experience. And beside her we have Maria Erotokutu, who is a graduate of a UWC short course, who's been very active in many different spaces in terms of youth engagement towards peace. And she co-created a youth activist group called the United Youth for Cyprus. And I'm sure she will tell us a bit more about that. But without further ado, I'd like to ask our panelists, and I should mention actually, these people, they will have amazing biographies. It would take us too long, especially given the short time we have now, to give the full resume, but when you have the time, you see their names on the screen, please do read them, because you will find a lot of inspiration there and information about the great things they've done. So I'd like to ask all of the panelists the same question, and it's a two-pronged question. I'd like this to be as dynamic a session as possible, but obviously I give the floor first to our panelists. So my two-pronged question is, when you think about a shared future for young people in Cyprus, A, what is the thing that gives you genuine hope? And B, what is the one thing that still worries you? And if that question is clear, Haris, I'd like to start with you. Please share your perspectives.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. I don't know whether this is actually working. Can you? Okay. Let's start from the more hopeful angle on this question. I think, I'm a researcher. I work at the University of Cyprus. I'm a social and developmental psychologist. So what I do is that I usually collect data from large-scale representative surveys in both communities of Cyprus. And that means that we have a good picture of what people of different age groups and different generations feel about each other as a communities, about the Cyprus issue, about contact, about prejudice, about trust. And the first actually very hopeful message comes from exactly from this research program, which is that the younger generation, especially what we call Generation Z, is actually in a better position to appreciate value difference, tolerance of difference in each other. And despite their lack of knowledge about the Cyprus issue and the passing time that creates this lack of emotional connection with the other part, there are very positive developments. For example, in the Greek Cypriot community, we find this U-shaped pattern, which means that very young people and very old people are much more prone to reconciliation compared to the Middle Ages. Now, what's the explanation of that? If you think about it, Cyprus has a special history of geographical segregation. So we had the bicommunal conflict in 63-64, we have complete geographical separation in 74, and for many years, people were actually raised in complete separation. But in 2003, we had the opening of the checkpoints. And in 2004, we had Cyprus joining the EU. That turning point actually creates a genealogical shift, which we are now starting to observe very clearly in the Greek Cypriot community, because that Generation Z, that was born after we joined the EU in the south, and after the opening of the checkpoints, which created opportunities for meeting each other and friendships and things like that, means that we are now starting to see in the new voters, 18, 20, until 25, a positive shift. So that's the U shape. Now, the older generation of Greek Cypriots, we know that they have this nostalgia, we used to live very well with Greek Cypriots, which can be a bit problematic because it's not actually true, but still they have the positive predisposition. Now, in the Turkish Cypriot community, we have a more linear relationship. So you see that the younger people are, the more positively predisposed they are anyway. So in that sense, both news in both communities. So that's my hopeful message. Now, what worries me? This lack of knowledge this lack of engagement with the discussions about the Cyprus issue, but I think we also have some positive developments there. The newly agreed, citizens' assemblies kind of agreement between the two leaders can bring the youth in this process very clearly. We have the technical committee, the people next to us, which is very promising, and congratulations on the work you are already doing and producing. And I think if we find the channels and the way to create opportunities for the young generation to be involved and learn more about the Cyprus issue, their heart is at the right place. That's my message. Thank you.
Okay, that's a very positive and optimistic message, which is always nice to hear. Amalia, before you answer the question, could you perhaps tell us briefly a bit about the work of the Technical Committee on Youth?
Yes. So, me, I'm the co-chair of the Technical Committee on Youth, along with my dear friend Derby. We have been operating for 1 year now. I don't know how 1 year has passed already. Well, since our establishment, we are meeting every 2 weeks at the Lydra Palace, always in person. And we did our very first event back in July of 2025, which we managed to get along 120 Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots together, many of them for their very, very first time getting to know a Turkish Cypriot and a Greek Cypriot and communicating together. So, and this has a very specific reason. As a person that I was associated before in bicommunal activities and events, along the years I started to realize that it was the usual suspects attending these bicommunal events, which of course the work of these organizations of the United Nations, the British Council, or other NGOs that were doing these activities, they did such a great work. But we've seen the same people attending this event. From the establishment of this committee, because there was appointment of specific person, we engaged our own circles to participate in bicommunal events that they didn't in the past, which was a very positive step towards youth and generally to the Cyprus problem. And to connect it with the hope element that you were referring before, this gave me even more hope than I had before, because we see people that are coming from different backgrounds, different professions, and different ideologies sometimes, collaborating and managing to work together and produce very specific results. So we had the first event in July, then we had another event before in December that we spoke about the mental health of the youth with experts from both the Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot community. The people from all over the island had the chance to talk about this very important issue with no taboos, and it was a surprise. It was surprising for us that they took a step and they talked about their personal experiences, and they also shared their own experiences with other young Cypriots. So we see in real time the collaboration of the youth from all over the island.
It sounds very much like a UWC program. I think we should
Yeah,
incorporate
also.
you in our activities.
Yes.
But more seriously, could you give some perspective perhaps on challenges that you see, something that worries you?
One thing that worries me very much, and we talk about it at the committee, and is something that we are working on, is to spread awareness about the committee's work and in general people engaging in bicommunal activities all over the island. I've seen this many times that it's very, everything is based in Nicosia mostly. We see Cyprus problem as a Nicosia problem, and I'm a person that lives in Limassol, and I can say that I and other people, we are the exception of people associated with the Cyprus problem, and this is not helping our work and generally the issue. We have to spread our work all over Cyprus, in Paphos, in Famagusta, all over the island. Also, the other people and other organizations that are working on bi-communal activities, they should also spread their work all over Cyprus if we want real results and not only the same people attending our activities.
It's, thank you, Amalia, the famous bubble, right?
Yes.
Baby, please.
Yes, my voice is clear. Thank you for the invitation, first of all. I want to first touch base on what Amalia said because it is directly with my hopes. She mentioned the first networking event we did and the people that were not familiar with each other, and these bi-communal events were also there. So I think this is my first hope, and this is a very positive thing for me because today also in the panel it is mentioned that being from the roots are very important, and mainly the usual people participated in these kinds of events and actual faces were familiar. But when I saw that we managed to enlarge the circle and new people were there, and even there were people that were saying, oh, how is this possible that, for example, the X individual is here. He or she is not even associated with these kind of things. So this is my one hope, like in a micro and individual level. And now I want to pass into a more structural and macro way, and I can explain my thoughts and hopes. One is, I think, the economic interdependency between young people, because now the economics is the most, it is the global agenda. If you are not tied to each other in economics, I think it is very, it is not realistic to hope for a shared future. It is not maybe sound too, too romantic, but now economy is what ties people to each other, and also it affects other social segments. So I hope for a economically interdependent youth in the future. And also, what about youth, mainly about youth? Of course, the participation or symbolic participation of youth is very important. But what is the most significant thing is, I think, shared responsibility rather than only participation, because mainly the youth are used as a tool to actually youth is also there, let's invite them. It is the most smooth subject. Okay, come into our meetings and etc. But when it comes to the decision-making processes and in the upper level processes, we are being stuck. So what I demand and I hope is the youth also becomes a really engaging partner in the decision-making patterns also. So these are my main general points about the whole point. And lastly, I can give an example from the committee's work itself. I also wish a transparent future for a shared responsibility and for a shared future, such as, for example, before the meetings or after the meetings, both Amalia and me, we know what can happen, what can be forced, what can be explained to each other. For example, we warn to each other really transparently. So we don't, for example, stuck in a topic and work on it for 6 months if it is not going to happen. Of course, we motivate each ourselves, but we respect to each other and we are transparent to each other. So I think that point is very important because everything can get politicized in our island, and this is a rightful thing in practice. So these are my points about my hopes. So my concerns. One of my concerns is, as a Turkish Cypriot, I can speak about these points. For example, Turkish Cypriots are deprived of, for example, direct trade, direct flight, and these things are an obstacle for a future shared responsibility, because if you are not equal, it is not really, how to say, possible in practicality to have a shared responsibility and a shared future. So this is one of the aspects that I concern about. And also, I think, so we are gonna make a future, but you know, we need to have empathy between ourselves in some topics. Or other than that, for example, we are doing very good networking events and such things, but I am a bit, how to say, I'm a bit cautious about if we are being stuck on only positive things, and some really real issues and everyday life issues that people and young people experience are still there. For example, that's why we did the mental health event, because it is an issue. So I think we need to concentrate on issues rather than only positive vibes. Of course, having cocktails, having a dinner is very important, and it is good vibes, and it is more easy to make it. But I think we should concentrate on more like issues that will touch on everyday life of the
Real life
people.
issues. Thank you, Baby. And indeed, I mean, you mentioned future. It's often said, and it was said this morning as well, that youth represents the future, but I'm sure my two colleagues here would say actually youth represent the present. So Yasmin, please share your thoughts.
So what gives me the most hope is the fact that the youth have such a different and unique experience compared to the other generations, because we do not have the direct burden of war on our consciousness, but we're also not so far apart from the conflict that we can just forget our past and try to build a future on top of nothing. And unlike the previous generation, like my parents' generation, who grew up completely isolated until 2003, when the borders opened, we were born lucky enough that we did have physical contact with each other. We just lacked the emotional and social connection. But also we were born into a digital age where we have more resources than ever. We can just, if we don't feel satisfied enough with something we learn at school about Cyprus or about anything else, we can just look it up and see other perspectives, which is an advantage that the previous generations didn't have until very recently. So I think we are more open to looking beyond what history we are taught at school, which from my observations I can see that it does affect how we look at the Cyprus problem, because we of course we don't have an understanding of both perspectives, but we have more of a way of finding objective truths about the past and the conflict, which helps us maybe take down our own prejudices and bias that are instilled in us. So it does give me hope that we are maybe more willing to work towards a shared future. And what worries me is that when we talk about the Cyprus problem, we talk from two different realities. My experience, understanding, and knowledge of our past and the conflict is vastly different compared to a Greek-speaking Cypriot's experience and knowledge. And we can't try to find a common future and a shared future when our past isn't shared, our knowledge isn't shared. It's a very small item to have this many differences and this many contradictions in history. And I think unless we lay a common ground on what we all can agree on is the objective truth, we will not be able to work towards a better, shared future. Because it's very difficult to try to reconcile when we're trying to reconcile for different things. How are we expected to try to work towards a shared future when even our understanding of a shared future is very different from each other? What I expect from reconciliation and a future where we're united is different from what maybe a Greek-speaking Cypriot expects. Even this difference in reality is prevalent in the generations. My grandparents' generation lived in a Cyprus who was united and then separated, and they lived through the war. My parents' generation, they lived in complete isolation until very recently. My generation, we didn't see the war, we didn't see living together, but we did see a physical connection. But even then, there was a border between us. Our understandings and realities are very different, which does worry me because it seems like we can't really get to an understanding about our past, which to me shows that we can't really start getting to an understanding about our future.
My response, well, a bit of context for my background. I've been active in the peace building community for the last 5 years. I started when I was 15 and I'm originally from Limassol. And I've been going back and forth ever since. Just because I care so much about this topic. And in the last 5 years I've met so many people and I've learned so much. And as one of the things that I've done, as mentioned before, was founded an organization called Unite of Cyprus, where we constantly do intercommunal workshops on various topics, be peace building, gender equality, or environment. Yes. We've done 10 workshops now and we've reached around 300 people. We've been doing this for a year and a half now. And the thing that gives me more hope is seeing how involved young people are and seeing the peace building community grow. Through all these workshops that we've done, I saw people traveling 2 hours just to attend them, just so they can meet someone from the other side. I've also seen young people take 2 intercity buses just to arrive and see someone from the other side. I've seen people go from participants to organizers to directors, from participating to actually creating the space. And that's what gives me the most hope. Seeing young people grow, evolve, and create more spaces for intercommunal dialogue and peace. And more space for generational healing, which is something that I always bring up. What worries me though is how I feel like systems are going against peace building in our country instead of for us. I feel like it's not secret that we are taught 2 different educations on both sides. And it's not secret that we're not necessarily taught to love each other due to the political context. I think we need to talk about this. We need to talk about how we don't agree on history, we don't agree on our shared history, we don't agree on our shared identity, how our education is ethnocentric, how we focus on the history of other countries instead of our own. Those are the things that make me worry the most.
Thank you very much. Iris, I see you've been taking lots of notes. I'm sure you have some comments and responses to what you've heard your fellow panelists say.
Sure, and I actually agree with everything said by my co-panelists here. I noted 3 topics that I think are very important here. One is contact. The other is a variation of physical contact, which is digital contact. And the third is history teaching. And if I might take a couple of minutes just on all 3. Through research evidence, we now have a very good picture of how effective is intercommunal contact in prejudice reduction and building confidence in Cyprus. We published many papers, we published a book recently, and all these 20 years of research on contact hypothesis is now synthesized. And I can tell you that the effect size of the effectiveness of contact in prejudice reduction in Cyprus is actually almost twice the effectiveness of it in any other part of the world. Why is this happening? I think it's because we live in complete geographical separation, and because we have different educational systems, historical narratives, there is fertile ground for creating misconceptions and stereotypes. But through our experience in the Bicommunal Technical Committee of Education with Mertem, through the Imagine program, we've seen that all this is like a bubble. A single meeting at the Home for Cooperation of 1 hour, 2 hours in the Imagine program breaks that bubble completely. The students come and say, oh, they're like us, you see friendships being created and wanting to keep this connection. So, in a nutshell, contact works very well in Cyprus, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of contact. So, re-establishing the Imagine program is crucial because it's a way to scale it up very quickly. and finding other ways to bring the two communities through digital contact. We published a paper about online friendships, the effect of online friendships in creating trust is important, significant, and over and above physical friendships. So that's another avenue, it works beautifully also. So we need to find ways to do that. Also through AI. Today we have, huge AI possibilities. In the University of Cyprus, we created some very important tools that can actually create this bridging of ideas. We published them recently in a platform called the Observatory of Bicommunal Relations and the Cyprus Issue. Synthesizes these 20 years of research. Anyone who wants access, it's already public, but just email me and I can give you the link. And I already talked about that to your committee.
Alice, if I may pause you there, there's a question or comment
I
from Maria.
wanted to add on that is that I started my peace building journey through an online short course actually. That's where I met for the first time Turkish Cypriots over my age. So it's true that having contact online can really lead to a lot of things.
Thanks. Thanks for reinforcing this, research evidence. You bring life to it, so that's really important. But just to finish on something very important is history teaching. I happen to be part of the Bicommunal Technical Committee of Education, and I think we need a closer collaboration between our two committees. If, for example, the need to re-establish Imagine comes from you, it's a different story than just coming from us. So my request to you, you come to us, tell us we need this happening tomorrow. And I think we will manage. Thank you.
Debbie, any response, any comments?
Yes, I mainly agree with the point of the diversification of contact. I think that is the most significant thing, and also it is also related with the education that thing. Because you, of course you can have different perspectives, but the thing is to do not stereotype it or to shape it according to that way, in a way that it will cause prejudice. Other than that, for example, if it is not like that, you can sit down and you can discuss different perspectives with a Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot counterpart. So it is not, I think, making it like the most common thing or like the same. There can be different stories or different experiences, but I think the most significant point is to enable that empathy, where at that point you will understand each other's different experiences also, and also the same experiences, like both of them in the same way. So that is my comment about the education part. So I see it very significant, but I think the most significant level is the empathy part, because it is a reality that there are also some different historical experiences and also some common. So we need to have a balance in that, I think.
Understood. At this point, I'd like to invite anyone in the audience who may have a question for any or all of the panelists to please step up. There's a question there.
Put them at the beginning next time.
Okay, that's a very good point. There's a question over there, and if you could please mention your name and your affiliation.
Hi, my name is Carlos Christofi. I also have an organization which focuses on it has to do with emergency situations, and it doesn't have to do with the Cyprus conflict. But what I wanted to add is actually not a question, it's just a point that our education really ignores some of the main points of the Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots conflict. Like when everything started, like back in 1962 or 64, I don't remember exactly the date, when everything, when the conflict between the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots started. So that is barely mentioned in the syllabus of history that it is taught in school. It's also taught, we're not exactly taught to hate each other, but the way they teach it makes it seem like they are violent and that we are the victims of the situation. Where on the other side, I think they do the same thing. They teach them that we're the violent ones and they are the victims. So basically, we're both wrong. And the history syllabus really needs to be updated. That's my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Amalia, can I ask you whether you think there's a role for your technical committee and with your co-chair to have an influence on the teaching of history in the north and the south?
Well, I think it's one of the most also important, but one of the most difficult topics to talk on the Cyprus problem. And anything that we discuss also at the committee and generally regarding the Cyprus problem. I personally, if you ask like another member who might have another approach to it, I always do a bit of my own like risk assessment of what I'm going to work on or discuss. If I see that the positives will be more than the negatives of that thing, then I will go 100%. And on the education and history part, what I would say that it might be more beneficial is to embrace the good examples and the positives of the history. I mean, what, for instance, I'm just brainstorming with all of you right now, that after the opening of the crossing point, what was the situation with the people coming again together, reuniting friends, family, and maybe that can also be taught as well. Like more recent history, embracing the collaboration and the engagement of the two communities, rather than erasing some things that will distance a part of the people of the island. I would say, because you did this, I don't want to talk anymore or further about the Cyprus problem. This is what I am I'm thinking of the history part and the education. Of course, there should be done work there, but we should be very cautious and very about the steps that we are taking, that we are doing positive work, and also by assessing the political scenery of the island at every moment and seeing how the people will take every measure that we are taking. Because we need positive outcomes rather than negative outcomes, especially when they are produced on the media. That plays a huge role of how these steps are taken by the communities.
Point very well made. Yasmin, if I could turn to you and changing tack slightly. It came up earlier in the conversation here about how sometimes youth are abused in terms of being token representatives of young people on the island in intercommunal spaces. If you agree with that, if that's also your experience, what could be done to change that? How could you be more meaningfully present and active?
I think the key part to solving this, and I do agree to an extent, I think the key part to solve this is to look at the education system. I, as a Turkish Cypriot, speaking Cypriot, I will talk about the education I receive. I can't talk on behalf of Greek-speaking Cypriots, but from my friends and peers I talk to, I believe it's a similar, it's in the similar realm. We are not taught our civic responsibilities or duties, what the democratic processes are in our island. We don't know what we can do to be actively present in decision makings. We are not taught the skills we need, such as critical thinking or empathy, even that is needed to challenge the status quo and try to change something. So what happens is we have a lot of young people who want change, but we just don't know what to do with the desire. We don't have the skills to back it up. We don't have anything to actually change anything. So we're just left at these events, just talking about the same points over and over again. Nobody tells us what to do. not what nobody tells us what to do, but nobody teaches us how we can do something. So I think the first step to getting over that is through education and also more collaboration between youth-led initiatives and governments. I think governments need to start listening to youth-led initiatives, especially those who are working on democracy and human rights and the Cyprus issue, on what the youth wants and what are some suggestions from the youth on how to change the future, basically, such as Maria's initiative, and also I also have an initiative to work towards creating more contact between between the communities. I think there are a lot of organizations that are there and have the voice and the ideas. We just need to start taking them seriously in governmental basis. I think we need to encourage and pressure the governments into listening to those initiatives and funding more of those initiatives, so we can have as much as youth participating and trying to shape the future as we can.
Thank you. Could part of the answer lie in what Haris mentioned earlier, the creation of these new citizens' assemblies, I think you called it? Maria, I don't know if you're familiar with this new body, citizens' assemblies.
Consultative assembly.
Sorry?
Consultative assembly.
Consultative assemblies. Maybe you could explain briefly, and then I'd ask Maria if she could comment on that.
Yeah. Well, there was an agreement last year by the two leaders for the establishment of a consultative body that would promote a kind of engagement of lay people. I mean, every citizen into the peace process. And just yesterday, I think a couple of days ago, it was announced that this agreement now is taking shape in how it's going to function. And it seems like it's a kind of structure that would allow for a steering committee that would organize randomly selected discussions of citizens of both communities, randomly selected to discuss various issues. They could be specific topics to be discussed, like the youth, like refugees, like property, like transitional justice. I mean, they could decide on even themselves what they want to discuss. But I think it's really important because we know from the European Social Survey, for example, that now, at least in the South, the distrust of all kind of institutions is huge. There is not a single institution in the South, at least, that people trust except universities. So they don't trust political parties, the parliament, the government, the police, the judicial system, nothing. So if you think about it, it's also very important for democracy, as you said earlier, Jasmine. How do we revitalize democracy in a time of widespread distrust towards institutions? And I have a lot of expectations, actually, from this consultative assembly, that it would not only meaningfully contribute to the peace process, but also bring back some trust to democracy and institutions in Cyprus. And there is a major bet there. It has to be transparent, and it has to really be meaningful. So what does that mean? It means that when these assemblies decide to propose some specific policy measures, there will have to be a mechanism of accountability that the leaderships are actually taking on board, or at least study and give feedback on these ideas. So, this will be a meaningful way forward, I think, and that's really of key importance.
That's interesting. Maria, how can you make this idea or this concept become a real reality and not just a dream?
How can I do it?
Well, I know you would be very active in that space, you and your peers.
I really like the idea because it is exactly what we've been trying to do, is create space for dialogue. And I like how it brings random people, because as we said before, sometimes we see the same people often. And I like to bring up that even though, of course, we're talking about youth on this panel, is that it would be good to also involve older generations of peace building as well, who have not had the opportunity or access to speak with people from the other side. So how would I do it? I think it's just creating space, organizing, finding the people, and bringing them together. That's all it is to it, I think.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, please. Someone has a mic?
Thank you so much. So my name is Desiree. I wanted to talk about, so I noticed the name of the panel is Empowering Youth for a Shared Future. I have a general sense that we're empowering youth to leave the island, and I say this as someone who I was born and raised in Cyprus. I'm not living in Cyprus right now, I'm just here visiting. So yeah, I feel like we haven't really talked about the brain drain, which is such a key topic affecting youth. And it's affecting both sides of the island for different reasons on both sides, but a lot of common reasons as well. And I've noticed recently there was a survey sent out by the Turkish Cypriot Professionals Association where they found that a lot of the reasons why young people are not coming back, among the key reasons, were things like infrastructure, electricity, internet, but also work conditions as well. And then in the south, I saw recently an initiative by the Republic of Cyprus to bring back young people, which I found was very, very encouraging to see. I don't know how effective it will be, but there were financial incentives to bring back young people from abroad. So clearly we both have this shared issue on both sides, and like you said, youth is the present, but if we're empowering people to go away, and I also received the EU scholarship for Turkish Cypriots, which I was extremely grateful for, but a lot of people go away and don't come back. So I guess my question to the panel is, you know, from UWC, you guys are abroad now, or maybe have been, are there any incentives for UWC to bring back, or what would you feel would ever bring you back to the island? For the technical committee, is this something on your agenda, and do you have any plans to address this issue? But then, not just for the panelists, we've been here all day talking about the economy, and Vehbi said the economy and youth is a very related issue. So whenever we're talking about the economy, we bring in a gender aspect, we bring in technology. It shouldn't be just on the youth to talk about this issue. It should be sort of streamlined through all the other conversations that we have to reverse this brain drain. It's great to be going abroad, I think, because we're a small island, we need to go abroad and learn new things, but how do we bring people back? Thank you.
That's a very important question, thank you. Are you able to share where you actually live now?
Yeah, I'm living in Belfast.
Okay.
So Northern Ireland.
Okay, thank you.
IOM, International Organisation for Migration, if you ask me for Ireland.
Perfect. Who would like to respond to the question? Very important point, I think. David?
Yes, thank you for the point. It is very on point because we were already working on a policy paper that we will present it to the leaders. That is our plan for now. And this was the first topic that we brought into our common problems, like the brain drain that we are experiencing in both sides. So now we are in the part of working like how people should be motivated to stay. And for example, one analysis that you made was that the stereotype on vocational and technical schools, for example, like the degrees of manual workers, they are all immigrants, of course. It is the case in all over the world. But I think in some manner, for example, as I know from my education, for example, Germany is one of the most developed countries and one of the most developed countries in this topic, for example. It is not something like a backlash or something as a negative consequence to be part of a for example, technical or vocational school. But I think the first step should be removing the stereotype on these kind of works that needs maybe some manual work or some technical skills. And now, I think in the next meeting, now we are processing into the other topic, like how should be the incentives for the people that already are not in the island. And I think now I am brainstorming maybe the diversification of the sectors can be a way, because in today's world, everything is very much niche and too specific. You know, in a category, for example, what is international relations now? It has like 20, 30 different things or topics established within politics and international relations, and also in economy and etc. So I'm not sure in both sides it is truly reflected. Like, for example, if I work on something specific or I am educated in something very specific, I'm not sure if I can have this job here. So I think diversification of sectors and specification of sectors are very important to handle this problem. But for the to enlarge it in a higher level and lobby for it, we have it under our plans as a technical committee on youth, and in the near future we will make sure that we will continue to work on this topic.
Yasmin.
So I do plan to leave the island. If it had not been for UWC, I would have left anyway for university. And to be honest, when I imagine my future, I don't see myself coming back. And when I think, why do I want to leave so bad? It's not because I don't like Cyprus, because I love my island. I love living here. I love the sea. I love the Mediterranean climate, everything. But what I want to study in university, which is very hyper-specific and into like research. If I had studied that and came back to Cyprus, the only job opportunity for me would to be a biology teacher, and that is not my calling. And a lot of the people who studied abroad and came back from the older generation, they studied things like microbiology, chemical engineering, genetics, and they came here to become teachers, even though that was not what they wanted. And also, I don't want to live in an island where half of my community, I can't reach them. I have to show my ID to go 10 minutes to my friend's house. I don't want to live in such a divided community when we don't really have many differences. So seeing that in firsthand is just really discouraging to see. And I think what happened with the previous generation as well, they also left. There's a large group of people from the previous generation who left to university to study, made their lives there, and continued living until around the 2000s. There was a wave of hope that the island would be reunited, and they all came back. And unless I see actual change, actual progress, I don't see myself coming back. But if I do see that, and the problems like infrastructure, job opportunities are also solved, I would love to live my life here, but since I don't really see a lot of changes right now, I plan my life to live abroad.
The one, because I have the mic so I can say this, the one advantage of being accepted into UWC with a scholarship, because most of our students come with scholarships, is that often they have scholarships to continue their tertiary education at some of the best universities around the world, including in Europe. So that's a perverse incentive in a way, but at the same time what we see is that alumni of our program, they tend to continue to stay involved with UWC activities in Cyprus. Some of them do come back, and Maria is on the island, one example. But there are others like her, and I think you need to take this in terms of medium-term perspective. Yes, we need the economic incentives, you need the right political climate, etc. But I think if there are more and more initiatives like the ones we've heard about today, you will create momentum, you will create a better, better economic opportunities, etc. Please, Maria.
I could add some maybe more positive points to the conversation. I chose to stay in Cyprus. I love my country, maybe a bit too much. No offense or anything. But the truth is, as time went by, I saw my friends, even in the Peace Building community and outside of it, go abroad as well. But what I saw is that they also kept contributing into making Cyprus better in this peace building context or in other contexts. I've seen them do research on the Cyprus conflict, at IVs in the US. I've seen them try to do projects when they come back in the summer. So, and I feel like there's so many people coming back from the diaspora trying to make our country better. So I feel like that's the answer to it. I think it's up to us to make our country better in whichever ways we can. Maybe creating more opportunities by making more businesses, or mentorship, or bringing the knowledge back to Cyprus and creating new things.
Great, thank you. I'm looking at the boss, Birol. Do we have another 5 or 10 minutes? We do? Okay, and there's a question there. Perhaps the final question, and then I'll ask the panelists for their final comments and remarks.
Well, it's good to hear the young people. And my question is, my comment and question. Thinking about my grandkids as well, like the youngsters are saying there, that they don't want to come back in such a country where there's a division and obligation for showing ideas by crossing, and not really being satisfied the way they're practicing their professions. That's true. You are the future administrators, and my question is there awaiting someone to touch their magic stick to change everything, to make the country in a more favorable place where we can live and enjoy living? What would you do to be such a country, to be that you will feel satisfied and living in? If you have the authority, and if each one of you is selected as a president or the party leader or whatever it could be, just imagine yourself, what are your suggestions?
I think the question is addressed mainly to the younger people.
If I had the authority, I would probably want to restart the round of negotiations that we have left since 2015, I think. I'm not sure about the year. I would want to see actual intention from both governments to try to solve the problem. And I would also invest a lot into job opportunities, because I think for the North, there is very limited options of what you can be. You can be a teacher, you can be a government worker, or nothing really. You can't really do anything else. And I have no disrespect to those jobs. They are very integral parts of society. They are the building blocks. But not everyone can be a teacher. Not everyone should be a teacher. It's also an important role to raise a generation. You can't just go into that profession just because that's the only thing you can do. It's not good for you, your mental health, and the kids' mental health as well. So I would invest a lot of money in that to create job opportunities for people to feel satisfied and make a livable wage, of course. And other than that, I think I would work a lot on infrastructure, because there is a very large problem of uncontrolled city building. There is no regulations or any sort of control over the rapid industrialization. Everyone is just building a huge apartment in every single spot, which is making the cities unlivable. They're not making it enjoyable. They're ruining the landscape of a very beautiful island. So I would work a lot on that to combat that sort of. But these are the suggestions that come to mind immediately.
Anything to add, Marie?
I'm thinking of how to say this. I think what I would do is try to make better systems for a country in each sector and invest in the people, of course. Try to help our economy and maybe try to ease corruption a bit in the government. I mean, it's no secret that many of our problems kind of go back to that, so I kind of want to bring that up. But yeah, I think investing in the people, investing in the future of Cyprus, creating more opportunities, and even maybe building more universities and schools so more people can study and become what they want to be, so they don't feel like they have to leave the country to achieve their dreams.
Great, thank you. I've actually been informed that there's a question somewhere behind the pillar. Oh, there.
It's just a suggestion. You can hear me, right?
We have microphone.
Translation also. Okay.
Can you please state your name and organization?
Yes, it works. Okay, just a suggestion because I heard you talking a lot about the history, the knowledge of history. In this very room, something like 30 years ago, we have developed a training, a workshop on a walk through history. I'm a guide nowadays, but I've been a conflict resolution trainer for years, a mediator. So you don't actually learn history from a professor or from a historian, which is okay, it's fine, but you learn from each other. So the two communities, the two groups separate, they draw a line on the floor, and then each one puts the important dates of their history. And then the other community comes and visits their line and asks questions, and they clarify to each other. And of course, if they need some help from a more knowledgeable person, they can get it, or from us, etc. It only takes a couple of hours. It's a very powerful exercise. It can bring people together, it can create compassion, and it can develop in terms of knowledge, etc. I learned in this very room. I'm 67 nowadays. 30 years ago, the Turkish Cypriots have suffered as well before 74, so it was an eye-opening for me as well. And the other thing that really did help, I know these are techniques that are 2 generations behind you, but probably they do work, is that we went on a bus trip together and we visited places. And as we work with Turkish Cypriot guides as well, this can be shared, and you can learn a lot by going to Salamis on one day and then visit Puri on the next day. This parallelism in other spots and other places, because it creates an insight that history on this island didn't start in 63 or 74. It started 10,000 years ago, and all this heritage is yours. You know, it doesn't belong only to the Greek side or to the Turkish side or whatever. And it helps us go beyond.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that. I think we've come to the end of the conversation, but I would like to ask the elder people on the panel to maybe leave us and leave the younger generation with a message, whichever message you'd like to share. You know, the future of Cyprus, how do you see it? And you know, what message would you share with people like Maria, like Yasmin, for the future?
Well, first of all, thank you, Candy, for reminding me the life-changing experience of actually attending that history, walk through history in Pila about 30 years ago. For me, it was life-changing. So thank you for reminding that. Now, Amalia talked about risk assessment. I would say that it's very important to find ways that we as academia, as researchers, as universities, empower youth in your work and your mission. And just to give you an example, if you asked in a representative survey 20 years ago, people in both communities, would you agree to the idea of a joint committee of educators to sit together from both communities to write new history textbooks? You would get resistance from the majority in both communities. But because we asked the same question today, we have clear support in both communities about that. So that, I think it's a way to calm down some of the fears of risk assessment. If you know, for example, that through these last 20 years, through the work of NGOs like the Association for Historical Dialogue and Research, there was a lot of work done that now people are much better and prepared to accept these ideas. I think this could actually empower your work. And I would propose also that a much closer collaboration between the Technical Committee of Education and your Technical Committee could actually multiply our impact of both communities. And that's something I would strongly suggest. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria.
Well, thank you very much for this discussion. What I would like to say as last thing is what my co-panelists referred to before about one of the main reasons of young people leaving the island is the geographical division that we're living in. But what we miss a lot, and especially the young generation, is the personal responsibility. Why would I wait for the stars to align and the political environment to be perfect in order to decide if I want to live in my country? It's first of all my responsibility. When they come, young people, and say to me, but why do you try, since the political scenery is like this, or since there are like external factors that prevent this the development? And I say, what do you do about your country? What do you do about the problem? It's our personal responsibility. It's not someone's Cyprus. It's not a politician's Cyprus. It's our Cyprus. And if my work now, the way I can do it is through the Technical Committee on Youth. I wasn't always there. Before I was just a person that was attending the communal event because that's what I could do at that point. Now I can do my work through the Technical Committee, and maybe in the future I can do it from another platform. I will still continue to do it for my island because I want this island to be as I imagine it, and this is how we all should work on. This is my comment.
Thank you. Baby.
First of all, I want to suggest everyone, and mainly the young people, the collaboration, because collaboration is something that it spills over too much. I want to give a very short example from our committee's work. For example, we were in an international retreat in Jordan, and there we had an idea that as young people we can be an intersection point to the other established 12 technical committees. And we started to, for example, we proposed an idea to have something in intersection between the Humanitarian Affairs Committee, and we teach old people how to use technology. For example, something very basic. But then it became like we have now 5 more technical committees that they want to have something with us in intersection, and this is what I want to really press on, because collaboration is, I have to say, it is like a flu, it spreads over too much, and I think that is very significant. We need to, I think we should not be scared from collaborating, because it multiplies, and now in our situation, for example, after Jordan, after 3 months, we were in Wilton Park for a retreat, for a panel, but only with the co-chairs of the technical committees, not only the technical committee on youth. And there, for example, one of the points were clearly, how can committees collaborate with each other? And there we were very happy about it. We did it 3 months ago, and now it is spilling over. So collaboration is one point. And lastly, my main wish is, my main hope, we spoke about the hopes in the beginning, and my main hope is 10 years after, the young people in this panel, maybe in the same room, I hope they do not explain the same hopes as we did today. That is my main wish. Yeah.
That's very well put. Thank you, Vivi. And if I may abuse my position here, just to express my main hope. So, as our friends in the European Commission know, as UWC, we are hopeful that one day there will be a UWC school on the island of Cyprus. We've been doing some work in that space. As I said earlier, we are a not-for-profit organization. We rely on philanthropy, on corporate donations. We're at the stage whereby, having done some groundwork, we know that there is an appetite, there is a need in Cyprus for what we call a change maker education. It's not necessarily bicommunal; it's intercommunal. It's open to anyone and everyone. But the type of education that a UWC school can offer is very much equipping young people for the present and the future. So 21st century skills, and about collaboration, about being leaders in different fields, etc. So if anyone feels the calling to support us or to make introductions, please do let me know. I'm around at least for lunch. But with that, yes, please.
On that point, let me tell you that through this kind of representative sample surveys, we asked this question about whether people would like to see a mixed school, a new mixed school, integrated school, and there is clear support by both communities. So I will send you the findings. I think you can use it for your purpose.
Wonderful. Well, rest to me to thank our panelists, Maria, Yasmin, Vivi, Amalia, Haris, for your wonderful participation, for all the audience for staying significantly over time. As I said, I do recommend that book. It's worth a read, right? It's quite challenging whether you believe what's written there or not. But more importantly, I think we've all agreed that the future for Cyprus can be bright. It's not necessarily bright now, especially for the younger generation. We talked about the economy, etc. But I think, as you've seen with our two representative youth here today, there's a lot of reasons to be very hopeful about the future. So thank you very much, everyone.